is its unique version of Carnival. Trinidad and Tobago's inimitable mass, from the French masquerade, has become a peculiar catharsis for the nation's 1.2 million people. The two-day pre-Lenten Bacchanalian rite is an annual event that allows the local gentry and even tourists to realize their pent-up fantasies in public. Notwithstanding the crowning of a king and queen of Carnival, the central, indeed the most controversial character of this civilized madness is designer Peter Minshall. Not surprisingly, a young Minshall took as his mentor George Bailey, a Carnival legend and history buff now deceased. Bailey's historical themes in the 1950s and early 60s had earned him the sobriquet, the Cecil B. DeMille of Trinidad Carnival. In 1963, Minshall was further inspired by an avant-garde costume, Beauty in Perpetuity, from the Bailey band Bats and Clowns. Several years later, Minshall would recall this watershed era in mass and raise the Tinseltown image of the celebrations to a personal cerebral art form. He would paint his own broad canvas with bold, satirical strokes, and he would suffer the wrath of Carnival traditionalists. In time, though, he would prevail, and his work would endure. Foreign magazines would ensure his continuing popularity. And it came to pass in 1983 that the old face of Carnival would don a new, expressive mask. Moreover, the streets of Port-of-Spain, Trinidad's capital city, would become a Chekhovian stage. And a cast of thousands would literally play out the Anansi stories spun by an egocentric artist with a contradictory heart as large as the festival itself. Who is this man with a British accent braided with a Caribbean lilt? It might well be easier answering the question, what is the meaning of life? 45-year-old Guyanese-born Peter Minshall grew up in Port-of-Spain, was graduated from London Central School of Art and Design in 1966, and thereafter created sets and costumes for a ballet theatre in Bristol. Became involved in the original Notting Hill Carnival in London in 1973, and taught drama at Dartmouth in the United States. In 1982, the Guggenheim Foundation awarded Minshall a fellowship for his carnival designs and costumes, an honor that also reflected his universal appeal. His greatest contributions awaited him back home, where a carnival of sexuality and sequins had mortgaged its soul over the years. He longed to be a mass man. His was a mission to lead a mass band down the streets and into the history books. First, he had to prove himself. From the land of the hummingbird, a prize-winning appearance by his foster sister Sherry Ann Guy in the 1974 Children's Carnival turned heads and boggled minds. He had put a body in a costume, made it dance, and called the creation sculpture. The performer had given it the power of communication, and the costume had become an art form of its own. Ironically, Minshall's insatiable appetite for surrealism drew raves from the public when he designed Milton's Paradise Lost as a carnival band in 1976. Winning Best Band title for bandleader Stephen Lee Hyung, the presentation proved to Minshall that he too could create his own opportunities long before they had a chance to knock. Among a succession of controversial Minshall themes, Dance Macabre and Papillon offered a Fellini-esque view of life's absurdities, prompting the carnival community to reel with shock. This wasn't mass, or was it? It was Kenneth Burke who said, "The most inventive satire is produced when the satirist knowingly takes serious risks and is not sure whether he'll be acclaimed or punished." For sure, Minshall lived such a dichotomy. But it was his belief that though the audiences smiled wryly, they would admit eventually that the most dangerous animal ever lived is clearly ourselves. Thus was born the notion of the trilogy as a rakish adventure through mankind's landscape of survival. His commandment, "Thou shalt not rob the future," was Minshall's burning bush. Now he was ready for the ultimate challenge.